Welcome back to another video. Today, first thing first, happy Monday. I forgot to mention that, but happy Monday. Shout out to Motorsport Madness. Big shout out to him, but shout out to the subs who did recommend this. F1's Most Horrific Crashes, episode 2. Obviously, you guys did recommend to check out episode 2 instead of episode 1. I think both are good in general, but episode 2, it's a tough one to watch. A lot of you guys said, but obviously this video is an hour 30 long. We're not gonna do an hour 30. We're probably gonna do 30-minute intervals to break it up. So probably 30 today, 30 tomorrow, and then 30 to end it off. Should be a good one. Should absolutely great one. As always, if you guys are on YouTube channel, don't forget to like and sub as well. I know you guys are probably like, Chad, like the intro's kind of like, are you scared? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I know like my intro is probably like more, it's more into it, but I'm kind of nervous for this one. I'm kind of scared. Like, I don't know why though. I don't know why. We have seen these crash, video stuff like that, but I feel like this one is going to like hit like more. But anyway, let's go ahead, hop straight into it, see what goes down. As always, don't forget to like the video and sub as well. Let's get it. James Hunt, the legend, former champ. Oh man, I don't know what to expect. If I ever happen to have an accident that eventually cost me my life, I hope it is in one go. Okay. Alright. Alright. Jeez. Shout out Motorsport Madness. Oh man, I don't know why. I'm scared already for some reason.
Welcome back to F1's Most Horrific Crashes, a series where we shall be taking a detailed look into Formula One's most infamous and horrifying incidents, which involved marshals, spectators, and of course the drivers themselves.
Now, some of these we may already know, just because like some of these people we have seen, we kind of like already know like what happened, stuff like that. But still, I think it is important to like just like we learn like how some of our favorite drivers, and unfortunately how they passed away. Unfortunately, like Senna, Villeneuve, stuff like that. It still sucks to this day because obviously, a lot of you guys probably seen Senna drive. Probably you guys haven't seen Senna drive, but a lot of you guys probably seen just races, highlights, stuff like that, and just see how good he was, and other drivers we have lost, stuff like that. It just still sucks. It just still sucks, especially like if those drivers meant so much to you, and just the impact that they had when they left.
In our previous episode,
It's
we
hard.
looked at some examples where the drivers were lucky enough to survive the crashes they were involved in. In this second episode, it is my sad duty to bring you those days in F1's history where drivers paid the ultimate price in their pursuit of speed and success. You may have been watching these incidents on TV, or perhaps you may have been watching from the circuit itself. Either way, the incidents that we're about to look into are still very much clear in the memories of those who sat and helplessly watched on as their heroes were tragically killed on the racetrack. But before we get into that, let me just remind you that no driver is forced to drive an F1 car.
Right.
Each of them dreamed of reaching the top step of motor racing and were very much willing to do anything to achieve that.
Right.
They loved motor racing, and nothing else would bring them the joy they experienced whilst racing in a Grand Prix event. They knew the risks and very much accepted that they themselves could possibly be killed in a racing car.
Yeah.
If they couldn't accept that fact, it was time to pack your bags and go home.
Yeah, I think that's something like it took me a while to like fully understand and respect. Like it's real shit though. Like these drivers, it could happen to one of these drivers every race, in any race. It's a scary sport to say the least, honestly, because the driver's so fast around corners. The car can have a mishap. Obviously, Joe going to use crash at Silverstone. That was scary. Obviously Romain Grosjean's, and then even the Pierre Gasly incident this season, in which obviously we could have had another repeat of the Antoine Huber, Huber incident. So it's it's a scary and
it
scary
goes without
race
saying,
every time.
the following video contains footage of injury and death, which some of you may find upsetting and disturbing, so viewer discretion is advised.
Alright. Let's get Paolo Gislemberti. 2000, I almost said 2020. 2000 Tiger.
The unsung heroes of any motorsport event, no doubt, are the trackside marshals who ensure the safety of drivers and spectators at any circuit, whilst at the same time being in the firing line if any accident takes place.
Right.
Medics, firefighters and flag wavers are all part of this mainly volunteer-run network, and without them, we would have no motorsport to love. I mentioned a moment ago that marshals are in the firing line if any accident takes place,
honestly,
and they have to ensure they can attend any incident as quickly as possible to ensure everyone's safety.
That's facts.
It was just a regular Grand Prix weekend as the F1 circus came to Monza for the 2000 Italian Grand Prix, with Mika Hakkinen leading the Drivers' Championship, but Michael Schumacher was hunting him down to take that lead away from him, and he performed well in qualifying, securing pole position in front of the expectant Tifosi crowd, with Mika Hakkinen starting in P3.
It's a home race too.
As the race got underway,
for Ferrari,
Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar was the first retirement at the first chicane, but all eyes were on Schumacher in the lead, with Mika Hakkinen following in second after a brilliant start. The broadcast was still following Eddie Irvine getting out of his Jaguar, but cut away just in time to witness a huge accident going into the Della Roggia chicane.
Has obliterated the polystyrene blocks, rejoins last, and Michael Schumacher is exactly where he wants to be and needs to be, and it's Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar who is the first retirement. And wow, that's the two Jordans and a mega, that's Trulli and French.
And there's many cars.
See, so this is like this part right here. I feel like not this part, but like scenarios in which like it's so like rainy or dusty, whatever, like you can't see, especially when like an incident happens and like you can't see where the cars are on the track, or in this specific clip, in this like I guess like ground level. I think I've always felt that, as like the scariest one, because first of all, you crash, obviously dust is in the air, obviously dust is in the air and stuff like that. And then you don't know where the other drivers are. So you could be, you could crash at the tire, but the next thing you know, out of nowhere, somebody else turn a corner, they're in the clouds and they mess up the turn and boom, it goes from bad to worse. That's why like I've always kind of like clenched up when I see like clips like this, when it's like cloudy, you can't see nothing, because it's just like
terrible
like you just can't see nothing. You just can't see anything.
I can't see that they can handle that one under the safety car. There look to be far too many cars involved in that. Two Jordans appeared to get together and then come into the back of the third and fourth place runners. Safety car is deployed.
As the cars approached the chicane at approximately 190 miles per hour, Heinz Held Frenzen's Jordan struck the left rear corner of his teammate Jarno Trulli, whilst also making contact with the Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello, forcing the three cars into a spin, which also collected the McLaren of David Coulthard. The four cars entered the gravel trap, kicking up dust and debris into a cloud, which left visibility extremely low. Johnny Herbert in the other Jaguar was almost completely blinded by the dust cloud and was forced to slow down early to avoid any unsighted cars. However, the Sauber of Pedro Della Rosa crashed into the back of Herbert's Jaguar, which sent the Sauber somersaulting into the air before coming to a rest upside down.
Holy crap.
The rest of the field passed through unscathed, despite the amount of debris spread across that portion of the circuit, but it appeared that there were no serious injuries in the horrendous accident. Approximately 4 minutes after the first incident, it became clear that somebody had been seriously hurt.
On top of the first accident, and now they're obviously attending to somebody down there.
I don't. If it's anybody, it's going to be De La Rosa. I'm just wondering whether it's the stretcher that I see with the red markings, or whether it's a marshal.
It was not Pedro De La Rosa that was being attended to, but instead a trackside marshal, Paolo Gislimberti. If you watch the accident again, you will notice a wheel spear off to the right hand side at very high speed.
Holy crap.
This wheel struck Paolo's upper body with tremendous force when he was moving away from his post with a fire extinguisher in hand. Trackside medics began to treat Paolo with a heart massage before Professor Sid Watkins and Gary Hartstein arrived on the scene to aid in his treatment. Soon after, Paolo would suffer a cardiac arrest, and he was transported to San Gerardo Hospital via ambulance. Sadly, Gislimberti never regained consciousness and was pronounced dead at a hospital at just 33 years old.
Jesus Christ.
His autopsy, released 2 days later, revealed that he died from severe head trauma. His funeral, held just 5 days later, was attended by several drivers, and his coffin was draped with a Ferrari flag, as he was a huge fan of the Scuderia.
Yes.
The investigation later revealed that he had died instantly from the impact. In response to this incident, wheel tethers, which are there to prevent wheels coming completely disconnected from the car in an accident, were to be made twice as strong for the 2001 season and beyond.
That's good.
Unfortunately, this did not stop further incidents with flying wheels, as just 5 races later at the season opening 2001 Australian Grand Prix, spectator marshal Graham Beveridge was killed by another flying detached wheel, this time coming from the BAR Honda of Jacques Villeneuve after a severe high-speed collision with the Williams of Ralf Schumacher on the run towards turn 3.
Early, actually, they've got to clear.
Oh, that was a terrific blow.
Despite the risks, marshals continue to put their lives on the line to make sure everyone has a safe weekend.
Marshals are probably, I feel like, the most important piece of an F1 race. But like, I was gonna say F1 puzzle, but piece, it sounds better. But my respect for marshals has grown so much because, like you said, what they put themselves through every race. You know, obviously, if a crash happens, boom, instantly they're already on the job, making sure they're good, stuff like that. I know I kind of made the mistake doing my Grosjean video like a few years ago, and I was talking about, you know, like, when the incident happened, and I was like, why aren't they just driving? Why aren't the marshals like running? I think they slow because the cars are still coming. They had to wait and they had to look like both sides, make sure it was clear. So that's still my apologies for that. But they do a lot. Obviously, pitch invaders, but obviously incidents, man. You know, obviously they're not on the track, but they are on the track. Like, you know, I guess they're like, I don't know how to explain it, which I don't sound stupid, but like, I guess like level with the road. Like, I don't know. I probably need to shut up. Don't even try to explain that part, but they put themselves through a lot every race. And I know I'm talking a lot. It's an already long video, so let me just keep going. But
and we, as fans, very much appreciate everything.
Oh no, for real, dead ass. Like, shout out race marshals for real. They're tremendous, man. Big shout outs to them. Ugh, real enough. 82, Belgian Grand Prix.
Gilles Villeneuve is often regarded as one of Formula One's finest ever drivers, and certainly Canada's greatest ever.
Yeah.
Making his F1 debut with McLaren in 1977 in an older M23, his performances impressed the field so much with his sheer determination and skill behind the wheel, he earned himself a move to Ferrari at the end of that season, replacing the outgoing Niki Lauda.
Niki Lauda.
Enzo Ferrari immediately took a liking to Gilles, who reminded him
Boy,
of the great Tazio
them
Nuvolari,
pants were
who won the
high.
European Championship in 1932,
Pants went to
and
his
was
freaking
confident
stomach.
Gilles would bring Ferrari success once again. Despite an awful start to 1978, and with the Italian press calling for Villeneuve to be sacked, Ferrari pressed on with Gilles, and eventually his form began to slowly improve.
Gilles Villeneuve.
The season was capped off in perfect style as Villeneuve went on to win his first race for Ferrari at the final race of the season, the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal. 1979 saw an even better season for Villeneuve, where he secured 3 victories and 7 podiums, including another podium at the Canadian Grand Prix.
My boy's a dog.
This season also saw one of the finest moments in Gilles' career, and one of the best battles ever seen in Formula 1 history.
Rene.
Towards
Rene.
the end of the French Grand Prix at Dijon, Villeneuve and the Renault of René Arnoux were engaged in a tight battle for second place
René
towards
Arnoux.
the end of the race.
And I tried to finish second, and he tried to finish second. I finished third. Anyway, for me, it was my best race because he was my best friend too. I remember Gilles, the person, the guys, and I remember at the end of the straight line, I went inside the corner. He was outside, and I moved my eyes, and I see his eyes. Very short, and I said, "He don't give me 1/2 second." And he says the same.
Incroyable, incroyable, Villeneuve de nouveau deuxième.
Banging wheels, lap after lap, the crowd cheered the 2 best friends on in sheer appreciation as both drivers would not give up on each other.
That's an awesome feeling, though. Going toe to toe with your best friend. Oh man, that's amazing. That's amazing. Both y'all competing, going all out, trying to win.
Ils sont fous.
They going crazy though.
C'est de la folie ce dernier tour.
Oh.
Ils se touchent, à qui mieux. Attention, Arnoux deuxième.
Right, they are going crazy. Now this is a battle. This is a battle right here.
Villeneuve le reprend. Ils vont se sortir. Ils sont passés 2 fois dans ce dernier tour.
Gilles only just managed to take second place on the final lap, with Arnoux following very close behind. Villeneuve would eventually finish second that season, just 4 points behind his Ferrari teammate Jody Scheckter.
Jody Scheckter.
Ferrari then went on to struggle for the next 2 years with uncompetitive cars, but Villeneuve had this unique ability to really push any car he had above and beyond its capabilities.
Oh, my hand's so
The
sweaty.
sight of a sideways Ferrari reassured onlookers that Gilles was in complete control. This skill was best seen in Canada once again in 1981, where during a very wet race he had a minor accident which damaged his front wing. Using only his peripheral vision to guide himself through the circuit, as his forward vision was blocked by the damaged front wing, eventually the front wing would detach itself and he went on to finish third, despite all odds being against him.
That's
This
crazy.
legendary performance proved to everyone that he was never going to give up and would fight for every point available
That's
right to the very
crazy.
end. Tragically, the end would come just 8 months later. Despite optimism ahead of the 1982 season, Villeneuve would have a miserable start with 2 retirements and 1 disqualification at Long Beach, California. The San Marino Grand Prix would fare much better for Ferrari. After the 2 Renaults retired with engine troubles, Villeneuve led the race with teammate and friend Didier Pironi behind him in second. 8 laps until the end of the race, Ferrari held out a slow pitboard to their drivers to instruct them to slow down to hopefully prevent a mechanical failure from either driver. Now, there are many different views as to what happened next, but Villeneuve saw this as an order to hold position until the end of the race, whilst Pironi saw the order that they were free to race each other.
Some miscommunication, it sounds like, between those two. Like, it seemed like one order, one team, one guy felt this, another guy felt that. Ugh.
On that very same lap, Pironi passed Villeneuve at the Tosa hairpin. Villeneuve fought back, but Didier defended with everything he had. On the penultimate lap, Villeneuve took the lead once again at Tosa and expected Pironi to remain behind him for the remainder of the race, believing that Pironi was simply putting on a show for the Italian crowd, which had otherwise seen very little action that day. On the final lap, Pironi took the lead away from Villeneuve once again at Tosa, and despite Villeneuve attempting to regain the lead, Pironi crossed the line victorious, with Villeneuve in second. The podium celebrations showed the world exactly how Villeneuve felt. Gilles was enraged and felt completely betrayed by his friend, vowing to never speak to Didier ever again.
That's crazy.
During qualifying at the Belgian Grand Prix at Zolder just 2 weeks later, Pironi was a tenth of a second faster than Villeneuve during the final session, and Gilles was eager to beat his time. With 8 minutes of the session remaining, Gilles approached the left-hander of turn 6 at high speed, but found Jochen Mass in his march travelling a lot slower on the approach to the right-hander of Ter Lammenbocht. Mass had seen Villeneuve approach and moved off the racing line to allow Gilles to pass. Unaware of Jochen's intentions, Villeneuve also moved to the right-hand side at the exact same time in order to pass the slower Mass.
Just the worst
and in
luck,
an instant,
man.
nothing could be done to prevent what was to happen next.
Holy shit. Holy shit. Oh my god. Oh my god.
The resulting collision sent Villeneuve's Ferrari airborne for approximately 100 metres before it nosedived into the grass and somersaulted across the track before coming to a rest, completely
Holy
destroyed.
shit.
During the accident, Villeneuve was thrown from the car and landed in the catch fencing situated on the outside of the Ter Lammenbocht, approximately 50 metres away from the wrecked Ferrari, still strapped to his seat but without his helmet. Several drivers stopped to help, including his best friend René Arnoux, and medical teams were quickly on the scene. His face was blue and he was not breathing, but his pulse continued as doctors tried to keep him alive. He was soon transferred by helicopter to the University Saint Raphael Hospital, where he was diagnosed with a fractured neck and thus put on life support, while his wife travelled to the hospital to see him. Gilles Villeneuve passed away
32.
at 12 minutes past 9 that same evening. The motorsport world was left in
Oh my god. Oh my god. I think that's probably the one crash in which I actually seen, like, you actually saw the driver, like you seen the driver like afterwards. This is another tough one. This is another tough one. Oh god. Oh, guys, I swear to God, I'm not faking this shit. Like, I don't really do well in terms of stuff like this. But, damn. You know, he wanted to win up his teammate. You know, damn.
morning, and one of the sport's finest ever drivers was taken away far too early. Ferrari withdrew from the race, and Didier continued with the team until he himself suffered a horrendous accident at Hockenheim in August that year, which meant he would never drive in Formula 1 ever again.
Jeez.
Gilles Villeneuve's legacy still lives on, and in 1997, his son Jacques won the Formula 1 World Championship of that year, achieving the feat that his father never got a real chance of achieving.
That's so hard, bro.
Gilles
That's one of
Villeneuve
the greatest
remains one of
things.
F1's all-time greats, and without doubt the best driver to never win a world championship.
I'm so
Pironi's
happy his
twin
son
sons
did, though.
were born after Didier's death in 1987. His girlfriend Catherine decided to name them Gilles and Didier Pironi in
That's
honor of the
hard.
two friends.
That is so
In
fire.
2014, Gilles Pironi joined the Mercedes F1 team and even stood on the podium at the 2020 British Grand Prix.
That's hard, bro. That's freaking amazing how just the respect, just to show, like, you know, you ever rouse at the end of the day, you know, still my best friend, you know, to name my son after you.
Just over a month after the death of Gilles Villeneuve, F1 would witness another tragic event, this time occurring at the start of the Canadian Grand Prix. Riccardo Paletti was in his first F1 season at 23 years old, joining the Osella team whilst by his own admission still getting to grips with single-seater racing, but decided to step up after encouragement from his sponsor, Pioneer. Despite the lack of experience, Paletti chose a different path in his approach to F1 racing, putting his fitness and diet ahead of anything else. This is commonplace in F1 now, but back then not many drivers put their physical health seriously, and certainly didn't feel it would help with driving performances. Paletti had entered every race of the season so far, but only managed to qualify for the San Marino Grand Prix, largely due to only 14 cars entering amidst the ongoing FISA-FOCA war, which led several teams boycotting the race. His first start in F1 came to an end on lap 7 with suspension failure, and he would have to wait another 4 races until the opportunity to start another Grand Prix would come along again, as he qualified 23rd for the Canadian Grand Prix. Filled with adrenaline, and with his mother in the pit lane watching his son become a professional F1 driver, the lights went green and the race got underway. However, on pole position, Didier Pironi had stalled his Ferrari engine just as the lights went green, which was too late for the organisers to abandon the start. The rest of the grid were left with only one choice: survive the most dangerous part of the race and avoid a completely stationary car. Most of the cars passed the Ferrari safely, with only minor contact being made with Raoul Busil.
Now, I know they said that they couldn't stop the race, but still, man, like, you know, if you find, like, if you, to me, like, this is me, like, if you know, like a car on the track, you know, is having issues starting up, for the love of God, just get that car off the track, then start the race. Because I kind of have a feeling what's going to happen. I just don't want to say it. But let's just keep it.
Which also collided with Jochen Mass and Alessio Salazar.
You see, we already had 2 cars.
Sadly, the same couldn't be said for the young Riccardo Paletti.
And now we wait for the red light. There's the red light. Now wait for the green, and this is going to unleash the 26 car field. There's the green lights, the field, and Pironi's in trouble. Pironi hasn't moved. The rest of the field goes. The 2 Renaults getting away, and there's all sorts of trouble on the grid. Pironi had stalled, and several cars involved. And one car, it looks like one of the Osellas, has hit very hard the back of Pironi's car. Pironi out of the Ferrari now, going over to the stricken Osella.
It was a huge impact. The Osella crashed into the back of the stationary Ferrari at 110 miles per hour, completely crushing the front end of the car. Paletti was left sitting motionless in the Osella with his chest wedged against the steering wheel.
Oh my
and then
God.
A truly horrifying sight played out in Montreal.
In the Osella team, and the car's on fire. The car has burst into flames. Of course, it's absolutely full of fuel because at the start of the race, the tank's absolutely full. And although these are safety tanks, the impact of Paletti's car when it hit the back of Pironi's obviously has ruptured the tanks. There's petrol on the road. The marshals there, you see.
As doctors including FIA Dr. Sid Watkins and fire crews arrived on scene to assist and stabilise Riccardo, the fuel tank suddenly ignited, catching everyone by surprise.
Holy crap.
Medics, fire crews and Didier Pironi fought the flames with any fire extinguisher they could find. All the while Paletti sat unconscious in the wrecked Osella, and his mother screaming out his name from the pit lane in absolute horror. When the fire was finally put out, Paletti was without a pulse, and it took another 25 minutes to cut him out of the car, as sparks from cutting equipment threatened to reignite the fuel. He was quickly transferred by helicopter to the Royal Victoria Hospital, where he was pronounced dead shortly after arrival at just 23 years old, 2 days shy of his 24th birthday, where he was to celebrate with his mother.
He's 2 freaking years younger than me.
Paletti suffered a torn aorta and fractures to both legs, most likely due to the front of the car being pushed inwards and onto his chest. Track doctor Jacques Bucard would later state that Paletti's pupils had already dilated by the time they got to the scene, and the extraction time made no difference to his survival chances, as he was already dead before the fire ignited. This accident highlights the dangers of cars stalling on the grid as the lights go out, and we already looked at one severe incident in episode 1 which should never have happened in the first place. F1 wouldn't see another death occur until 1986, when Elio De Angelis was killed during testing at Paul Ricard, and the last death during a race weekend until the 30th of April 1994.
Oh, for freak's sakes. I already know about this one, man. Oh my god. Was it like 2?
The late
Senna
1980s
somebody
and
else?
early 1990s was an extremely popular time in Formula 1. After all, some of the most iconic cars and drivers came from this era. Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna, Nelson Piquet, Keke Rosberg, Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell and Gerhard Berger, just to name a few.
Gerhard.
V10s, V12s,
Oof.
V8s.
Oof.
The noise, the speed and the glamour was rife in F1 at this time.
I don't care. Some deliveries in the 90s and the 80s, regarding some F1 cars, bro, they look a lot better compared to now. Like, some deliveries back then, they look a lot better than what we got now. It's some gas. Like, that's...
But it was
like,
not without its faults.
That shit fine.
We've already looked at some accidents from this era, but none are more memorable than the events of the San Marino Grand Prix in 1994. It was the third race of the season, and Michael Schumacher was already the trailblazer with the Benetton outfit, whilst three-time world champion and one of the greatest F1 drivers of all time, Ayrton Senna, had switched to the Williams team for 1994, but struggled to get to grips with the FW16, with 2 DNFs already this season as they arrived at Imola. Imola was and still is one of the most popular racetracks in the world, and in these times it was even faster than what it is now. Most notably the high-speed flat-out left-hander of Tamburello, which would eventually feed into Villeneuve and the hairpin at Tosa. In the past, there had been some pretty horrendous accidents at this corner, most notably the 1989 Gerhard Berger crash, which we have already covered in episode 1. Regardless of the dangers, drivers were still willing to race. Unfortunately, alarm bells started to ring fairly early as Rubens Barrichello, then in his second year in F1, crashed heavily at the Variante Bassa chicane.
Holy Jesus Christ!
He touched a curb on the high-speed entry to the chicane, which launched the car into the air and impacted the top of the tyre barrier at 140 miles per hour, an impact force measured at 95 G. Luckily, Rubens only suffered a sprained wrist and a broken nose, and was able to return for the next race in Monaco.
That's crazy.
It was now Saturday, the 30th of April,
That's
1994, and it's time for qualifying. 18 minutes into the session, Senna was on provisional pole when a lone Simtech was on track hoping to improve his time. The driver was 33-year-old Roland Ratzenberger, who is enjoying his debut year in F1 on the back of an impressive 11th place finish at the Pacific Grand Prix in Aida 2 weeks earlier, despite the Simtech car being one of the slowest on the grid.
Jeez.
In his first flying run, Ratzenberger approached the Villeneuve curve at approximately 200 miles per hour, when suddenly his front wing failed and jammed itself under the front end, leaving the car unsteerable as it headed for the concrete wall.
You don't get a real appreciation of how fast they're coming through that chicane on the TV. They carry a lot of speed. Oh.
And Ratzenberger's had a heavy shunt indeed. We're going just to see there's movement in the cockpit, but that is a heavy impact on the left-hand side of Roland Ratzenberger. And again, marshals very quickly indeed. And I suspect that's the same part of the circuit that we saw that accident. In fact, no, this is not. This is coming down the straight through the Villeneuve.
Now listen, I get it. You guys are probably like Chaz. If you can't handle this, why are you reacting to it? Why are you watching to it? That's a very good question. But I feel like it's important for me because I'm still learning F1. I know we've been doing it about 2.5 years now. Well, 3 years. I think about 3 years. 2.5. My second full year. So yeah, my second full year. But still, I think it's just important to understand more about F1. And I know the crashes aren't pretty. I know these crashes are freaking horrific. Absolutely horrific. But still, I want to, just give you guys my thoughts about this. Show you guys my emotion with this. Because honestly, it is tough. It's just tough to go through. I'm seeing motionless people getting flown. Something I would never bother to just look up. But obviously, this is Formula One, and this is unfortunate, sad history part of F1. And I feel like for me, it's important for me to understand it, and for me to pay my respect and pay my dues to these lost drivers that we have had. Obviously, Senna, Villeneuve, and stuff like that. So it's I feel like it's good, but at the same time, it is tough. It's very tough.
And into Tosa Hairpin, and he's gone off.
Bro was freaking
to the left-hand side of the track. That is flat out 190 miles an hour.
Like, bro looked motionless.
Red flag once again all around the circuit. Doctors, marshals, fire attendants, and you can see straight away attention being given to Roland Ratzenberger.
This may be just the last
The
one we do
Simtek
after
hit the
94
concrete
San
wall
Marino.
at 195 miles per hour, with an impact force measured at 500 G, the highest ever recorded in an F1 car. The car continued to travel along the circuit, disintegrating as it went before eventually resting in the middle of the Tosa hairpin. All the while, Roland's head moved violently from side to side in the cockpit. Medics were quick to the scene, and Roland was transported to Maggiore Hospital, despite attempts to save his life. He was pronounced dead at 2:15 that same afternoon,
34 years old,
with millions of people watching all over the world, and F1 had witnessed its first fatality since Paletti in 1982. His injuries were so severe that an investigation revealed that he died instantly on impact. This accident sent shockwaves across the world, and the entire paddock was left devastated by the news. None more so than Ayrton Senna, who was visibly shaken by the news and decided to take no further part in qualifying. Professor Sid Watkins would write in his memoirs that Ayrton broke down in tears over the accident, and he tried to convince the Brazilian to pull out of the race. But Senna refused.
Damn.
Sunday, 1st of
I feel like Senna did that to like honor him. I feel like Senna went to win his race in honor for him. But I think we kind of do know what's going to happen this part as well. It's just, I mean, you have to remember, like, these F1 drivers, some probably raced together growing up. Obviously, Keke Rosberg and Hamilton, for example. I think Leclerc and Verstappen, those two. So, like, a lot of drivers that we've seen, they've grown up racing against each other at some point, whether in Formula 3 or, like, a Euro tournament, whatever. I say Euro tournament, like a Euro race series, whatever. Like, obviously, they have grown because, obviously, F1, a lot of these guys are still your friends, stuff like that. You guys are competitors, but at the end of the day, a lot of these guys are still your friends. And to see something like this, yeah, it's devastating. It's freaking horrific.
May,
it's awful.
1994.
It's an awful feeling.
It's race day for the San Marino Grand Prix, and Senna was on pole position with the Benetton of Michael Schumacher starting in P2. Earlier that day, Senna enjoyed breakfast with his former rival and now retired Alain Prost, as they held a discussion about improving safety in F1, as it was clear at this point drivers were no longer safe.
He doesn't even
They both agreed on working
in.
together on this problem, and Senna later gave a heartfelt message on radio to Alain when he did a demo lap in his Williams for French TV. The race got underway, but there was trouble almost straight away as JJ Lethot stalled his Benetton as the lights went out. Pedro Lamy in his Lotus failed to see Lethot and crashed into the back of the stricken Benetton, which threw debris and tyres in all directions, with a large amount travelling over the catch fencing and into the crowd.
Do you know how hard it is having to maneuver a car driving that fast around a car that's stalled? Like, that's hard to do. Then impossible to try to, because at the start of the race, you're trying just to get as fast as you can so you can, make some headway. Then when you see somebody in front of you, you drive that 150, 160 span for like a few seconds. You can't just Damn.
8 spectators and 1 police officer.
Jesus!
The safety car was brought out and the surviving cars all lined up behind the Opel Vectra, which many believe was unsuitable for a safety car, and Senna was visibly annoyed by the car's slow speed, even pulling alongside at one point to encourage it to speed up. Eventually, the safety car pulled in and the race got underway once again at the start of lap 6, with Senna leading and Schumacher following closely in second, with the BBC commentators of Murray Walker and Jonathan Palmer remarking at how quick the German simply was. On lap 7, Senna was still leading, with Schumacher still hot on his heels and far ahead of the rest of the pack. They both entered the fast Tamburello curve at 190 miles per hour. Suddenly, the future of Formula 1 would never be the same again, as the unthinkable happened.
He was going to do that. That would slow him down far more than his performance here looks, and it looks that perhaps that was a Benetton smokescreen. I'm not quite sure why they were so far off in the warm-up, but he is really not losing much to Senna at all. I would say basically he's right with him.
Well, we are right with Michael Schumacher now, and Senna! My goodness! I just saw him plunge off to the right, and Senna has joined Pedro Lamy and JJ Letter in a shattered motor car. You can see the debris on the right. What on earth happened there? I don't know. Whether it was a sudden loss of downforce for some reason, but Senna is still in the car. It means to say, of course, that Schumacher has gone into the lead, but the important thing is now, how is Ayrton Senna, with the marshals already waving the yellow flags? No passing.
Yes, this looks very severe indeed.
Ayrton Senna suddenly continued on in a straight line whilst negotiating the exit of Tamburello and crashed head-on into the concrete wall at 135 miles per hour, as Senna had managed to apply the brakes, but there was not enough time to sufficiently slow the car down. Senna's Williams came to a rest shortly afterwards, with Senna sat motionless in the car as the other cars negotiated through the debris at high speed. Soon after, the red flag was shown and the race was stopped as medical teams rushed to Senna's aid, including his friend, Professor Sid Watkins.
Shit. Holy crap.
At 6:40 that same afternoon, 2 hours after the end of the race, it was announced that the 3-time world champion, Ayrton Senna, had died. One of the greatest...
I'm sorry, but the Senna one probably hits me the most, just because I said Antoine Hubert. I mean, I think I was talking about Leclerc's friend Jules Bianchi. Never mind. But let me shut before I say anything stupid. Honestly, and get myself more in trouble. But I think the Senna one hit me the most because Senna talked about just the day before about wanting to, like, fix up, wanting to, because he just saw, like, shit happen that same weekend. And now he's talking to pros about fixing up, wanting to fix up the safety and F1 stuff like that. And then, sadly, and freaking tragically, Senna passes that same weekend while he was talking about it. That's probably the worst one. That's when it really hits me the most. Because it's just like, God damn. Like,
drivers to ever grace the tarmac was taken away in a matter of a few seconds, as the autopsy later confirmed that Senna was killed instantly by flying debris from his front right tyre and suspension, which penetrated his helmet. The actual cause of the accident is still to this day a talking point, but the most accepted theory is that the steering column of Senna's Williams failed. It was later discovered that the column had been cut and extended before the race upon Senna's own request to try and make the car more comfortable to drive. To further add to what was already a weekend of horror, Michele Alboreto came in for a pit stop on lap 48 of the restarted race. As he left, his rear right tyre came off his Minardi, which struck 4 mechanics who required hospital treatment. Despite calls from Bernie Eccleston and Niki Lauda to stop the race carried on.
I'm guessing, but it wouldn't
Why?
surprise me at all in view of the way this race has gone and the chaos in the pit lane and the fact that there's a stretcher there to see the race stopped. It's run the mandatory distance of 3/4 in order to enable full World Championship points to be awarded, although that is a bit irrelevant now too. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the red flags come out to stop one of the most unhappy races. It's been my ill fortune to watch in my
This is probably the worst race ever.
Grand Prix viewing career.
This is the worst race
As
ever.
the dust settled in the aftermath of one of Formula One's darkest weekends, the news spread of Senna's death. A true legend was now ripped from millions of people's hearts, and at his state funeral 5 days later, 3 million people lined the streets of Sao Paulo to bid farewell to Senna, and several drivers were also in attendance, including his former rival, Alain Prost. The 1994 San Marino Grand Prix is one of the darkest weekends in F1 history, and the deaths of 2 great drivers will never be forgotten.
The worst weekend ever. It's just the worst weekend ever. I think we are going to leave it there for right now. That was part 1. Hope you guys did enjoy. As always, don't forget to like the video and sub as well. Take care. Stay amazing. And as always, talk to you guys soon. Peace.